Can you fire an employee who is a whistleblower? That's the question I'm answering today. So here's the setup. Let's imagine that you are preparing to fire an employee. He has a bad attitude, he doesn't do his job on time, he's slow, he causes problems with other employees, shows up late, leaves early, checking his phone throughout the day, takes more breaks than he should, gossips, just causes problems at the company. You're getting ready to let this employee go. And then the employee reports your company to the government. Maybe it's an OSHA violation. Maybe it's some other allegation that the company is doing something wrong. The question then is, can you fire that employee? Can you still let him go? The short version is, yes, you can fire them, but you need to be very careful. And there are some best practices and processes you can go through that will help protect you should the employee later claim that you were firing him because he was a whistleblower and you were retaliating. I'm Aaron Hall. I'm a business attorney. I help entrepreneurs and business owners. The goal of this channel is to help you as a business owner avoid legal problems. All right, so let's say you're about to fire somebody. They just filed a whistleblower claim. You want to avoid a claim that you're terminating the whistleblower in retaliation. How do you do that? Step one, document performance issues. So ideally, every time the employee has performance issues, you document it. You put the date and you put all the information you have. Now, let's say, for example, it's something subjective. So like, he had a bad attitude. That doesn't look very good. It's not the strongest of evidence, but there's a way that you can take subjective information or evidence and make it objective. Here's how. Let's say somebody reports to you that John has a bad attitude. Instead of writing on December 2nd, 2023, employee John Smith had a bad attitude, put in there another employee reported that John Smith had a bad attitude. So as you can see, instead of it saying subjectively it was a bad attitude, you are objectively reporting that another employee observed and felt it important enough to come report that bad attitude. Also, if you can have quotes, that's even better. Like, the employee said, I hate this place. Management is so corrupt. Management is so bureaucratic. Nobody gets anything done around here. We're not appreciated, yada, 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 yada. I'm not suggesting that that evidence alone is enough to overcome a whistleblower retaliation claim, but what you want to do is have a thorough documentation of all of the problems that led up to letting an employee go. So when the employee later claims it was retaliation for a whistleblower claim, or it's because of my skin color, or it's because of my religion, or it's because of some other protected class, you can say, no, it had nothing to do with that. It was because of all these reasons which were documented. So documenting objective reasons for the termination and keeping a record, very important for protecting yourself should there be a claim that later you illegally terminated somebody for an unlawful purpose. The second step is make sure that you follow your company policies and procedures. For example, if you have an employee handbook and it says discipline will be handled in this manner with the following steps, perhaps it's an incremental increase in consequences. You need to make sure you follow that, because in a whistleblower retaliation case, the question will come up, did you follow your own policy and procedures for handling discipline and discharge of an employee? Step 3, avoid the appearance of retaliation. Now, we talked about why you should document things, but there might even be actions that you could take that would suggest the termination is in retaliation, when in fact it's just an appearance issue. For example, let's say that you make an announcement to the staff that this employee was let go. And let's assume that you have documented evidence. But if you immediately make that announcement and say, by the way, they just reported us to OSHA, well, that is having an appearance that the report was tied to the termination. So there's an example of where you just want to have, you don't want to mention that. You may not mention any reason at all, or if you do mention it, you don't mention the whistleblower claim. You mention the reasons that led up to it. And by the way, it's generally best practice not to mention the reasons that led up to it because it's negative, it feels gossipy at times, it's focusing on the past, and you also might open yourself up to a defamation claim if word gets back to that terminated employee that you were bad-mouthing them and they believe it was you made some sort of false statements. So timing is an important issue when thinking about the appearance of impropriety. For example, if you get notice of a whistleblower claim on a Tuesday, it's probably not the best to terminate the employee Tuesday night or Wednesday. It's important to make sure that that claim has the appearance of being separated. And again, I've already talked about the substance. It should totally be separated. You can't fire somebody because they report something illegal to the government. But avoiding that appearance and being thoughtful about that will go a long way to avoid evidence being used against you later in a whistleblower case. The fourth step is you could consider offering a severance package. When you let somebody go, you can offer payment in exchange for them releasing any sort of claims against you. Claims that are known or unknown. Now, there are very strict federal and state rules about a severance agreement, which lawyers usually call a separation agreement. And those rules relate to giving a period of time for a person to consider the document and retract it if they change their mind. There's also special language that needs to go in there. But here's the general idea. If you're concerned that an employee who you terminate may later sue you for some sort of unlawful termination, like discrimination, whistleblower retaliation, etc., you can work with that individual to have a contract that says you've settled any disputes between you. And in exchange, usually that employee gets some sort of money. It could be $1,000. It could be compensation based on a period of time, 2 weeks working, a month. I think I've even seen 3 months or 6 months in some extreme cases. That's one option. Putting together a separation agreement or a severance package for the employee in exchange for the employee waiving any claims for unlawful termination. Finally, in circumstances like this, I'd recommend consulting with an attorney. A business attorney who's experienced in employment law can help you navigate the unique circumstances of your situation and can bring to light any federal or state laws in your area that would be important to consider prior to the termination of the employee. I love it when clients contact me before terminating an employee because we can get all our ducks in a row. But when people terminate someone and then contact me, I may say, look, let's get together our documentation, but often it means putting it together later, and that simply doesn't look as good as if the documentation were put together at the time the employee was being disciplined or other information about the employee was brought to the attention of the employer. All right, so there you have it. Can you fire an employee who is a whistleblower? Absolutely, but you should do it very cautiously, following some of the tips that I talked about today. This YouTube channel is going to be talking about many of these sorts of issues, about how you as business owners can avoid problems. If you are a business owner and want to avoid legal problems, go to aaronhall.com/free. You'll get a free PDF from me and subsequent videos that are only exclusively available to people who have signed up. And that's a way that I can help educate you as a business owner in how to avoid problems in your company, have a successful company, and ultimately, my goal is that you have a successful life.